Everyone, welcome back to Data Crafting with Sneha. Today we are going to solve a really interesting SQL problem, which is acceptance rate by date. So let's get started. First, let's understand what the problem is saying. Calculate the friend acceptance rate for each date when friend requests were sent, and a request is sent if action equal to sent and accepted if action equal to accepted. Okay, so we have to calculate the acceptance rate for each day when friend requests were sent. Okay, so what does that mean? Imagine you send a friend request to someone. If the other person accepts it, that's called accepted. If they don't accept, then there is a no record of acceptance in the table, right? If a request is not accepted, there is no record it being accepted in the table. So if a friend request is sent, it will show in the table with action equal to sent. If that request is accepted, it will show with action equal to accepted. And if it's not accepted, there is a no row for acceptance. Okay. And in the output, will only include dates where requests were sent and at least one of them was accepted, as the acceptance rate can only be calculated for those dates. Okay, so in the output, we want for each date. So how many friend requests were sent and how many of them got accepted, right? From this, we will calculate the acceptance rate. So let's look at the table. We have a table, user actions. So it has a 4 columns. User ID sender, the person who sends the request. Next, user ID receiver, the person who receives it. Next, action date, when the request was sent or accepted, and next action, either sent or accepted. So look at the table, action date 4th January 2020. So on 4th January, we will calculate how many requests were sent. On 4th January, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So on 4th January, 4 people sent friend request, right? So these are the 4 requests sent on 4th January. Now let's see how many of these were accepted later. So user ID sender and user ID receiver, it's same, right? So this is the first one. Next, second, and third. So out of 4 requests sent on 4th January, 3 were accepted, right? So calculate the acceptance rate. So how can we do this? Acceptance rate equal to total number of accepted requests divided by total number of sent requests. Right. So on 4th January, total number of accepted requests were 3. Right. Divided by total number of sent requests 4. So equal to 0.75. Right. So this is what we want our query to return. For every date where requests were sent, show us the acceptance rate. Right. So let's start. First, we will select all the columns from user actions table, where action equal to send. So we are selecting all the rows from the table where action equal to send. Right. Now I will run this query and see. In the output, it will show the send request only. Right. These are the sent request. So on 4th January, 4 requests were sent. Right. And on 6th January, 3 requests were sent. So on 4th January, 4 requests sent, and on 6th January, 3 requests were sent. Right. Now I will make it as a CD with, we named it as a send request as. Similarly, we will select all the columns from user actions table where action equal to accepted. Now I will run this query and it will give us the accepted request. Right. So now I will make it as a CTE to accepted request as. Okay. So now we need to connect the sent request with their accepted request. So for that, we will select from sent request S. Here we are using left join because we want to keep all the requests that were sent if they were not accepted. Right. So we will use left join here. Sent request, left join, accepted request A on S dot user ID sender equal to A dot user ID sender and S dot user ID receiver equal to A dot user ID receiver. Okay, so we are matching the user ID sender and user ID receiver, both the tables, because that's how we identify the same friend request, right? Now we are selecting S dot action date as action date. And now we will calculate the acceptance rate. Okay, so count of total accepted request. So A dot user ID receiver. So it will give us the total accepted request and count of S dot user ID sender. So it will give us the total sent request. right? So we will use cast as a float, make it as a decimal. Okay, now we will use group by clause by s dot action date. Okay, so if any of them were accepted, we will get the accepted date, right? Otherwise, it will be null. Now, I will run this query and see. In the output, it will show the action date and acceptance rate. So on 4th January, on 4th January, 75% of friend requests were accepted, right? And on 6th January, 66.67% of friend requests were accepted. I will name it as a acceptance rate, right? I can run it again. And now we will solve this problem using window function row number. So let's get started. Using row number. So first, we will select all the columns from user actions table. Now we will use row number over partition by user ID, sender, and user ID receiver. Okay, so this groups the actions between each pair of users, and we will use order by action date and rank. Okay, now I will run this query and see. In the output, it will show user ID sender, user ID receiver, action date, action, and rank. So it gives rank equal to 1 and rank equal to 2. Okay, so if a user sends a request and later it get accepted. So this user ID sends request to this user ID and this user ID later it gets accepted. Okay, so those two rows will get rank 1 and rank 2. Right. But if the user ID sends the request and the request was never accepted, we will only have rank equal to 1 here. Right. So 4th January, user sent a request and on 6th January, user accepted the request. So it will get rank 1 and rank 2. Right. Now, here on 6th January, user sent a request, but no accepted row. Here it's no accepted row. only one row is here, right? So now how we find the acceptance rate? So I will make it as a CT with CT as. So select from, we are joining the CT table to itself, CTC, and here we are using left join because we want to include all the sent requests, even the ones that were not accepted, right? So C dot user ID sender equal to CT dot user ID sender and C dot user ID receiver equal to CT dot user ID receiver. Okay, now we want we will add one more condition here and C dot rank equal to CT dot rank minus 1. Okay, so this means match the sent row. The sent row equal to 1 with the accepted row equal to 2. So if both exist, we know that request was accepted, right? So for that, we will use C dot rank equal to CT dot rank minus 1, right? And we will add where clause where action equal to sent. So it will filter out the sent request. Now in the output, we want action date and now we will find acceptance rate. So count of total accepted request. So CT dot user ID receiver. So accept it will give us the accepted request and count of C dot user ID sender. So it will give us the total sent request, right? We will cast it as a float and now we will use group by clause C dot action date. Right. Now I will run this query. Okay, so here we will use C dot action. And now I will run this query and see. In the output, it will show the action date and acceptance rate. I will name it as a acceptance rate. Now I will run this query and see. In the output, it will show the action date and acceptance rate. So on 4th January, 75% of friend requests were accepted, and on 6th January, 66.167 friend requests were accepted. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.